All right. More about alcoholism. So, right. So, the doctor's opinion and Bill's story told us what the problem was, right? And the problem was this disease of alcoholism, which is just simply that I got a mind when I'm stone cold sober, tries to get me to drink. And I got a body, once I had a drink, that just continues. It wants more. It wants more and more. So if that's happening, the book says we have a solution in the We Have a Solution chapter, which we just read. And it turns out that solution is a vital spiritual experience. And the vital spiritual experience is, it talks about something that we arrive at through going through the 12 steps. So the chapter More About Alcoholism, I call this like the supporting evidence. So the first 60 pages of the book, in the first 60 pages of the book, it says very clearly, it says, our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to agnostic, and our personal offenders before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. First 60 pages. A, that we're an alcoholic and we can't manage our own life, right? So we've kind of, that's step one. Have we gotten there? Yep, pretty much. This More About Alcoholism is going to give us a little more supporting evidence so that we can say, yes, I am an alcoholic and I can't manage my own life. The second thing that we're going to learn is that probably no human power could relieve my alcoholism. And then, so the first 60 pages is going to give us the reasoning why no human power could relieve our alcoholism. And so More About Alcoholism is sort of supporting evidence for that. And then the third is that God could and would if he were sought. And that last bit right there is more of like we agnostics. And we agnostics, that really gets down to the meat and the bones of, you know, this thing, this power, this source, this whatever. That, you know, your cell phone battery's on red. It's saying, you know, I need power. And so all you do at the end of the night is you take your cell phone battery, you plug that sucker into the wall, and you get refilled from power greater than you. So we agnostics really helps to answer that question that God could and would if he were sought. Your battery could and would be regenerated if you plugged it into the wall. Kind of like that. So, all right. More about alcoholism. Many of us had been unwilling to admit, if you put brackets around that, that's denial, right? So unwilling to admit just simply means that I'm in a state of denial. I'm not having that. Nope. Just means I'm still saying no. Reality is telling me, hey, kind of looks like you're a real alcoholic, but you know, this part of me says nope. And that's the denial part. So most have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics, and defined real alcoholics in the last chapter as, you know, those who cannot not start drinking, and those who, when they start drinking, cannot control the amount they consume. So we just get going. So no person likes to think he is bodily or mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it's not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain in that sense means it's hollow or failed or futile attempts to prove that we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. All right, so the idea that somehow, someday, so that means like that's a reservation. You know, we talked about reservations, I think, last week. Like, when I hold a reservation that maybe somehow, maybe some way, it's like I'm holding a space in the future. It's like I call a restaurant and I say, hey, can I get a table for Friday night? I've made a reservation at some point in the future. I'm hoping. So, what are we hoping for? That one day we'll be able to control and enjoy our drinking. So, if you got to control your drinking, what does that mean? It's out of control, right? If you need to control something, that means that something is currently out of control. So that's, you know, that's number one. Okay, so shit, my drinking is out of control. And then if you're going to enjoy, well, I don't know about you, but if I have to control the amount of drugs I'm putting into my body, I'm not enjoying my high. I'm not having as much fun as I could be. I'm too fucking worried about controlling to enjoy. No, I just want to be balls to the wall, just boom. That's how I enjoy my liquor and my drugs, is fully. So, the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. So, the great obsession, right? So, we talked about the obsessive thoughts. An obsessive thought is a thought so strong it pushes out all the others to the contrary, right? It's a lie that presents itself as the truth. It says, hey, look over here. It's a thought coming from inside your own head. Not outside, inside, right? It's already behind your security systems. It's already gotten into the innermost, innermost parts of yourself, and it's now telling you, "Hey, Nikas, let's get high. Nikas, let's drink. Come on, you can have just one drink. It's a wedding. You're gonna toast for champagne. Come on, just one. It's like, so. The great obsession is, I look at it then now, I talk about that sentence as, before I had this relapse. I came back in, I read that line, and I was like, oh. So it's not the great obsession, it's the great obsession, come see the crazy circus, great obsession. It's like some crazy thing. It's like a freak show circus, like a sidetrack, a sideshow attraction of the great obsession. Why? Because it's not normal. It's like this amazing thing that gets you to do what you said I'm never gonna do again. It's a pretty fucking cool thing. Pretty cool. All right. The persistence of the illusion is astonishing. Many people pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. So an illusion, right? An illusion is something that you believe something that's not true, right? You know, when a magician does an illusion, it's like they pull a quarter out of your ear. Did you have a quarter in your ear? No. But it sure looks like you did because they pulled something, they're now showing you a quarter. So if you believe something, if you believe the persistence of this illusion, the persistence of this thing that says, hey, it's going to be different this time. You can shoot dope on Friday and make it to work on Monday, right? The persistence of that illusion, that's not the truth. But if I believe it is the truth, then we got problems, right? If I believe it is the truth, then I'm going to probably pursue that illusion into the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This was the first step in recovery. Where's step 1 in the book? Well, one could say it's right there. What's step 1? What step is one? Step 1 is you have to fully concede that you're an alcoholic to your innermost self. Not just to your outermost self, but like to your innermost self. Like that just means you have to really down deep go, oh, fuck, I'm an alcoholic. I can't not drink, and then I can't not get drunk if I drink, right? So that's who I am. I can't see it coming, and then I can't stop it once it starts. I can't see it coming. It just comes, it just happens. I end up taking a drink. Somebody hands me a joint and I smoke it. Somebody cuts up a line and I snort it. Can't see it coming. And then can't stop it once it starts. Turns out I'm a real alcoholic. We had to fully concede this to ourselves. The delusion that we are like other people presently, or presently maybe, the delusion that we are like other people, or presently may be, has to be smashed. Right? So there we go again with a delusion. A delusion is come to believe something that's not true. Right? So if somebody's delusional, they're coming up with crazy stories, and you're like, oh, whoa, dude, that's delusional, right? So An obsessive thought is a thought so strong it pushes out. Obsession is a lie that presents itself as the truth. An illusion is when we think something's happening but it's not. And then a delusion is believing crazy stories, right? So all those things were just talked about right here. That's what we call alcoholic insanity. When you believe those things, you're alcoholically insane. All right. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control, right? So powerless just simply means I have lost the ability to control my drinking. That's what powerless means. I physically do not have the power. The power is not vested in me to A, not take a drink, or to B, control how much I take, right? And it could be drinking, could be doing drugs, whatever, right? So that's the powerlessness part. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times we were regaining control, but such intervals were usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. And the acronym for that is PAID, P-A-I-D, pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Honey, you paid for your seat in this goddamn a goddamn AA meeting with pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, not better. Actually, it says never better, right? So it's another really important. I mean, you hear that, and it's a progressive illness. It gets thrown out there, but this is the supporting evidence. This is the document, right? This is like a legal document. This is the supporting evidence that I have to understand. Shit. Okay, this is how it's going. It's where it is now, but where it is now is actually worse than it was a year ago, which is worse than it was 2 years ago. So it's never getting better. It's going one way, the down way. It's like like on a chart where there's a graph. It's like, well, at some point it might have little ups and downs and blips and whatnot, but it's tracking south. It's not going up. So we are like men who have lost their legs. They never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind like other men. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there has been brief recovery, followed always by a still worse relapse. And, something to note, there's the good old days. When we talk about the good old days, the reality is the good old days are gone. Like in some instances, there's been brief recovery followed by still worse relapse. Why? Because we're looking for the good old days. We're looking to have fun like we did that one time. Remember that one time we had fun? Remember that you keep trying to have that fun again? The good old days are gone. That's just the truth. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree there is no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Science one day may accomplish this, but it hasn't done so yet. So they've come out with that. What's the name of that pill? It's if you take the pill and then you drink, you get sick. So yeah, science has given something that you'll get sick if you drink, but they haven't actually cured it. They just made it a little uncomfortable. So even back in 1939, they hadn't come up with a remedy. Here we're at 2018, almost 110 years later, and we've still got no actual, no way to make a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe that they are in this class, right? Because nobody wants to be that guy. By every form of self-deception, It's lying to yourself. By every story you can tell yourself, and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves to be exceptions to the rule, and therefore non-alcoholic. If anyone who is showing inability to control his liquor can do the right about face and drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. Heaven knows we've tried long and hard enough and long enough, and we just can't do it. We can't drink like other people. Can't smoke meth like a gentleman either. Can't shoot drugs like a gentleman either. So, here are some of the methods we've tried. Drinking only beer. Limiting the number of drinks. Never drinking alone. Only buying a quarter ounce. Never drinking in the morning. Drinking only at home. Never buying the baggie ourselves, always using somebody else's. Never drinking during business hours. Drinking only at parties. Switching from scotch to brandy. Drinking only natural wines. Agreeing to resign if we ever go to work high or loaded. Taking a trip, not taking a trip, swearing off it for good, with or without a solemn oath. Taking more physical exercise, that's it, the gym will fix this. Reading inspirational books, going to health farms and sanitariums, going to every fucking silent retreat and meditation thing that I could go to, accepting voluntary commitments at asylums. We can increase this list ad infinitum. We do not like to pronounce any individual as an alcoholic, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. So it's really important. We don't want to tell, I don't know, and it's not my job to tell you you're an alcoholic. You can tell yourself if you're an alcoholic or not. How do I know? I'm not psychic. I can look and I can see that, wow, looks like things are problematic over there. But it's not my job to actually decide whether or not you're an alcoholic. It's my job to maybe give you the tools to help you diagnose yourself. So, that is, try to drink. Okay, step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. Let's do a little experimentation here, shall we? Try this. Try drinking and stopping abruptly, right? If meth is your thing, try shooting a nice big shot of meth and then try stopping and not thinking about it. Try that. Try it more than once. Right? So if you get away with it the first time, see if you can do it a few times. See if you get loaded and then stop. Try it. It will not take long for you to decide if you are honest with yourself about it. And it may be worth a bad case of the jitters to get a full knowledge of your condition. Because if you can't not just do one, then you might be alcoholic. Though there is no way of proving it, we believe that our drinking careers and our drug careers, most of us could have stopped at one point. But the difficulty is that few alcoholics ever have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. We have heard of a few instances where people who showed definite signs of alcoholism were able to stop for long periods because of an overpowering desire to do so. Here is one. All right, so this is called the exceptional man. Okay, this first story. There's 3 stories here. The first one is exceptional man. A man of 30 was doing a great deal of spree drinking. He was nervous in the morning. What happens? How do we get the shakes and the jitters in the morning? Oh, maybe a little from drinking a little too much. After those bouts, and he quieted himself with more liquor. Oh, so he was getting the DTs in the morning. And how do you get rid of the DTs? You have a couple, right? That's how you get rid of that. I got you. He was ambitious to succeed in business, but he saw that he would get nowhere if he drank at all, right? So he understood. He's like, shit, if I drink, I'm going to not make this thing. So I'm going to, it's best I don't drink. So he, So the thing about this chapter is, if you follow a good thought with a good action, you'll get a good result. However, if you follow a bad thought, or let's just say an untrue thought, with an untrue action, right, based on an untrue thought, you will get not good results. So good thought followed by good action, good results. Bad thought followed by bad action, bad results. How this works. So once he started, he had no control whatsoever. So he understood. He made up his mind that until he had been a successful business and retired, he would never touch another drop. An exceptional man, he remained bone dry for 20 years. Imagine that. Imagine just having a good old thing called willpower and not drink for 20 years. However, at the age of 55, after a successful and happy business career, then he fell victim to a belief. Ring around word belief, right? So a belief is a thought, right? A belief is just a line of thinking that if you believe it, you're screwed. So he fell victim to the belief, which practically every alcoholic has, that his long period of sobriety and his self-discipline had qualified him to drink like other people. Right? So if you're able to withhold for 20 years, right? That alone is going to give you some sort of self-confidence. You have the ability to do this thing, right? But remember, it's a progressive illness. So all the while there where he wasn't actually drinking, his disease was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Progressing. Never better. After a long period of sobriety and self-discipline had qualified him to drink like other men. Out came the carpet slippers and a bottle. In 2 months, he was in the hospital, puzzled and humiliated. He tried to regulate his drinking for a while, making several trips to the hospital meantime. Then, gathering all his forces, right? Come on, Willie. Come on, Mr. Willie Willpower. Let's do this shit. He attempted to stop altogether, and what? Found out he could not. That's a rude awakening. Every means of solving his problem, which money could buy, was at his disposal. Right? So we're talking therapy, we're talking treatment facilities. He had everything because he had all the money to be able to stop. All these things, right? Remember the beyond human aid. So all of the things that are out there to help us to not drink, they're not working. So beyond human aid just simply means those things are going down the drain. Oh, and just remember the 12 steps are free. And maybe they cost you $1. I mean, so all this money towards stopping, or just go to the spiritual program and do it for free? No. Every attempt failed. Though a robust man at retirement, he went to pieces quickly and was dead within 4 years. This case contains a powerful lesson. Most of us have believed that we have remained sober for a long stretch. We could therefore drink normally. Right? So that's the lesson to learn there is everybody, it's like you get people into treatment for a while, they get sober, they're like, you know what, it's been a year. I can totally do this. What am I thinking? I'm running a sober living. I can totally do this. I got this. But here is a man who at 35 years found he was just where he had left off at 55. We have seen this truth, demonstrated again and again. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Right? Now, if he'd actually recognized that as the truth, that there would have saved his life. But he couldn't recognize that as the truth. His version of truth was the obsessive thought that says, well, since I've been dry for so long, I can handle this. That's how the obsession showed up in this guy. Commencing to drink after a period of sobriety, we are in short time as bad as ever. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation, right? We talked about that word reservation. Reservation is just holding a place in the future. If of any kind, if there's nor any lurking notion that someday we'll be immune to alcohol. So remember what a few pages earlier says, somehow, someday we'll be able to control and enjoy. There's he thought that somehow, someday it would all work out, but it didn't work out so well for him. He died. Young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think that they can stop as he did on their own willpower. We doubt if any of them can do it, because there'll really be nobody who wants to stop, and hardly one of them, because of the peculiar mental twists already acquired. We find he cannot win out. Several in our crowd, men of 30 or less, had been drinking only a few years, but they found themselves as helpless as those who have been drinking 20 years. All right. So that peculiar mental twist, that's one of those highlight, ring around little sentences. Okay, so an obsessive thought usually comes to you when you're not thinking about it. So you can have willpower. You can say, oh, come on, Willie, let's do this thing. I'm going to not drink. 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 Here. And so it's like, oh my God, look at her. And you're like, wow. Somebody says, hey, you want to drink? It's like there's a peculiar mental twist. The moment you take your eye off the ball, where's your eye? Not on the ball. What if somebody grabs your ball and takes it away? You were looking elsewhere. That's what those peculiar mental twists. Your attention is suddenly somewhere else. Sometimes it's because you're angry. Sometimes it's resentment. Sometimes it's guilt, shame, and remorse. Sometimes it's fear. But our mind can be elsewhere. And when our mind is in this magical, mythical world of what's not happening over there, strange stuff can happen. Peculiar things can happen in our actual, where things actually happen, which is the right here, the right now. So, to be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink for a long time to take these quantities some have had. This is particularly true of women. Potential female alcoholics often turn into the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. Certain drinkers who would be greatly insulted if we called alcoholics are astonished at their inability to stop. We are familiar with these symptoms. They see large number of potential alcoholics among young people everywhere, but we try to get them to see it. Yeah, no. As we look back, we feel if we had gone on drinking many years beyond the point where we could quit on our own willpower. Read that again. As we look back, we feel we had gone on many years beyond the point where we could quit on our own power. If anyone questions whether he has entered this dangerous area, let him try leaving liquor alone for a year. Again, here's test number 2. Try this. If he's a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there is a that's a small chance of success. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remained sober for a year or more. Being serious drinkers again later, though you may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may be a potential alcoholic. We think few to whom this book will appeal can stay dry anything like a year. Some will be drunk the day after making the resolution. Most of them drunk within a week. So that's the second experience. The first one is walk over to any bar room and try to drink and stop drinking. The other way is you think, I got this thing. The other thing is then, just try not drinking for a year. See how that works out for you. How then? No, wrong paragraph. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is, how do we stop altogether? So this paragraph right here, this is the why would I need a higher power? Why would I need to turn to some sort of God thing? Well, here you go. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. We are assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. So that's the one caveat. Do you actually want to stop? So, or are you just in the, I just want to kind of slow down, or I just want to, But if you really, really, really want to stop, caveat. Whether such a person can quit upon a spiritual basis, underline spiritual basis, depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. So, if you've already lost the power in choice, if the power of choice is not yours, then you are going to need a power greater than yourself to actually make that choice for you. If you can still make the choice, if you can still take it or leave it, right, then you're not a real alcoholic yet. And if you want to stop, that's probably a good time to stop. But if you've lost the power in choice, the power of choice is not yours anymore. That's when you know you're going to actually need this higher power thing. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever, yet we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. This utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. So it doesn't matter what the reasons, doesn't matter you're going to lose your job, doesn't mean you're going to get kicked out of your place of living. It just doesn't mean that you're going to be tossed out of the management position at the sober living, because it doesn't matter. That's the baffling feature about alcoholism. It just doesn't matter. I hear people at meetings say, it's not an option for me. What the fuck is that all about? It's always an option, you idiot. It's always an option. As long as there's alcohol and drugs in this world, it is an option. You may not think it's an option to you, but it's always an option. How then shall we help our readers determine to their own satisfaction whether they are one of us? The experiment of quitting for a time will be helpful, but we think we can render an even greater service to alcoholic sufferers, and perhaps the medical fraternity. So, we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse. So, these are the things that happen prior to drinking. So, when we take the first drink, if we say, I'm never going to do this again, you got to understand, I'm stone cold sober at that point, right? So the phenomenon of craving, that unexplainable occurrence of wanting more, that's already stopped. I'm no longer under the grip of the phenomenon of craving. Now I'm sane, I have all my wits about me, there's not a drink in my system. I mean, I should just be able to, if I say I'm never going to do it again, I should be able to do it again. I mean, not do it again, right? I mean, that's most sane people. If they say, I'm never going to do that again, right? You just don't do it. I mean, say you were messing around with a cat or something. Oh my God, I'm never going to do that again, right? You don't, because it's silly to do that. But this alcoholism thing, it gets us. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede us doing the thing that we said we're never going to do again. Because apparently, we don't necessarily have a drinking problem. We have a thinking problem. So the thinking is what precedes a drink? What precedes is our thinking. I have some thoughts, beliefs, or ideas about XYZ. And so then therefore I take an action based on XYZ. For obviously, this is the crux of the problem. So the crux, the root, the ground floor, the absolute is the thinking that precedes the relapse. So again, let me say it one more time. We don't have a drinking problem, we have a thinking problem. What sort of thinking dominates? Dominate means completely engulfed, totally dominate. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree, has brought his attention to the point of divorce or bankruptcy are mystified when he walks directly into a saloon. Why does he, or of what is he thinking? Right? So they don't get it that we are in the grip of obsession, right? They don't understand that we have these thoughts that push out all of the true thoughts to the contrary. They don't understand that we have like some voice in our head that's talking to us in our own voice, that's gotten out of all the different security systems, right? It's gotten past everything. It is sitting in heads in the central, I can't remember what it's called, but in the central part of our brain, and it is the one that's telling us central command. It is sitting in central command and it's giving orders. So it doesn't have to get through any security systems. Our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. So this story is called Jim. The man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. He has a commendable World War record. He's a good salesman. Everybody loves Jim. He's an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a little nervous disposition. He gets a little shaky here and there. He did no drinking until he was 35. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated that he had to be committed. On leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us, Bill and Bob. So when he started drinking, he would have to be like locked up, like literally locked up. Our first example is a friend. We told him what we. Sorry. So he comes into contact with Bill and Bob. We told him what we knew of alcoholism, and the answer we had found. So you notice that they're not telling him about his drinking, and about how bad he is, and about how he needs to stop, and they're not shaking their finger at him and telling him, well, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Like some people at AA meetings. They do this. No. What they told him was what we knew about alcoholism and what we had found. He made a beginning. He did a step one. His family was reassembled, and he began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. Okay. So remember, he used to own that car dealership? Well, he lost it, but now he got a job there as a salesperson. So he's working for the guy that he lost while he was drinking. His family all went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. So all went well for a while, but one of the most important features of this whole recovery thing, right, is to perfect and enlarge our spiritual life. He didn't do that. So what does that mean? That means he didn't pray, he didn't meditate. He just did what he wanted to do. He did not do what was suggested, which is pray and meditate daily, have a daily practice. He did what he wanted to do. So he failed doing the program. Failed. But he succeeded doing what he wanted. To his consternation, that means dislike. To his consternation, he found himself drunk a half a dozen times in rapid succession. Bam, 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 bam. On each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. He now agreed he was a real alcoholic and in a serious condition. He knew that he faced another trip to the asylum if he kept on. Moreover, he would lose his family, to whom he had a deep affection. So Jim really gets it. This self-knowledge. He's got the self-knowledge of. He knows that he's going to lose his job. He knows he's going to lose his family. He knows he's going to end up in the asylum and in the treatment. If he does it again, he knows all that, and still, yet he got drunk again. We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. This is his story. I came to work on Tuesday morning. Wait. What happened on Monday? Came to work on Tuesday. On a Monday. It goes Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. That's the weekend days. And then Monday. So maybe he was like called in sick Monday? I don't know. I came to work Tuesday morning. I remember I felt irritated that I had to be a salesman for a concern, for a job that I once owned. I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Wait, so when you start off your conversation like that, I was irritated that I had to freaking work someplace I used to own. I had a few words with the boss. What, a few words about why you weren't there at work on Monday? And how'd those words go? Was it a easy peasy conversation, or were you kind of shitty? Those would be the questions you ask. So then I decided to drive into the country and see one of my prospects for a car. On the way, I felt hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they had a bar. I had no intention of drinking, right? So there's a bar there, and he just had no intention to drink. I just thought I would get a sandwich. I also had the notion that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar, for I had been going there for years. I had eaten there many times during the month I was sober. I sat down at the table and I ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still not a thought of drinking. I ordered another sandwich and decided to have another glass of milk. Totally normal, right? These are normal things, normal place, normal, right? Suddenly, here's the insane thought that he's going to follow with an insane action and get an insane result. Suddenly, the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt. It couldn't hurt me on an empty stomach, right? So there's the untrue thought. Here's the untrue action. I ordered a whiskey and I poured it in the milk. I vaguely sensed I was not being any too smart. So was that curious mental blank spot? Vaguely vague, you know? What does it say on page 25 or 24? Unable at certain times to bring into the consciousness with sufficient memory the memory of suffering and humiliation of even a week ago. We are without defense against the first drink. So here he is sitting there. He just can't see. He's without defense. Can't see that this is not a good idea. The experiment went so well, I ordered another whiskey and poured it into more milk. That didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another. Yeah, okay. Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and a position, to say nothing of the intense mental and physical torture which drinking always caused him. Right? So they're laying it all out there, saying, this is all the shit you can lose. This is where your life's going to go. And yet, and still, right? So, so when people say, oh, it is out of the question for me. There's no way. Because my life is so, I would lose. It's like, yeah, did you read the Jim story in here? Because Jim himself said drinking was not an option for him. So if you think that you're better than Jim, good freaking luck. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, self-knowledge. Yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk, right? So obsessive thought, maybe I'll just do this, right? A thought so strong, it pushes all the good thoughts. All the ones that are like, no, don't do this. All those thoughts just being casually pushed aside. A lie is coming in and saying, hey there, I am the truth. Choose me. And because it's already down in past my security systems, I will, of course. I wouldn't ever try to hurt myself, would I? Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. For how can such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else? You may think this is an extreme case. To us, it is not. Far-fetched. For this kind of thing has been a characteristic of every single one of us. So that's every single one of us. If we look back in our drinking history, we know once we got to the point where we could lose stuff, and we actually said, "I'll never do this again," right? And then we did do it again. Here we are. We're Jim. So this is like saying, "Oh, it's not an option for me." Well, how many other times have you said it's not an option, and then you drank again? Come on. We have sometimes reflected more than Jim upon the consequences, but there was always the curious mental phenomenon, right? So, peculiar mental twist, strange mental phenomenon here, that parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. All right, so we read that again. But there was always the curious mental phenomenon, right? A phenomenon is something that you cannot explain. Curious just means like questionable, like not normal. That paralleled with our sound reasoning. So our sound reasoning is going along the highway, barreling down. And this phenomenon is barreling down the highway just next to us, right? Same highway, totally different. That inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for drinking the first drink. So, and that could be like, hey, the Raiders won. Hey, the Raiders lost. Yay, it's Christmas. Boo, it's Christmas. Anything that'll get you to say fuck it. Trivial. You know where things are going to go. You know you're going to lose your job. You know you're going to lose your house. You know you're going to lose your family. You know you're going to lose your kids. And yet, whatever this thing that just says, it'll be different this time. That's what we call an insanely trivial excuse. When you have all this to lose, but you choose this one, that's insane. Our sound reasoning, right? Our sound reasoning, the thing that we think that works in our lives is like, I think that I have sound reasoning. I think I'm a good decider. Well, it failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. Next day, we would find ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity. How could it have happened? So, we're honestly saying to ourselves, in a deeply sincere way, how the heck did that happen? Right? In some circumstances, we've gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. But even in these type of beginnings, we're obliged to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insignificant in the light of what always happened. So, knowing that I'm going to lose my job, knowing that I'm going to lose my kids, knowing that I'm going to lose my whatever, car, knowing all that, and then to say that, no, dude, I meant to. I meant to do that. I meant to do that. Wait, you meant to, you why didn't you give me your car? If you're going to give your car away, why didn't you give your car to me? Why didn't you give your girlfriend to me? Why didn't you give your kids to me? It's like nobody sets out to say, oh, I'm going to go kill somebody tonight. Yay, right? But no, I meant to do that. I said I'm going to do that. So it can't be both. You cannot be willing to give your kids up if you love them. You cannot just say, oh, I'm going to just go give them to the prostitute guy on the corner. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. It just makes zero sense. So we now see that when we begin to drink deliberately instead of casually, right? Like there's a difference. There was little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be. So I decided, I decided I was going to drink. Well, decided on what basis? With what evidence? I mean, what was your deciding figure there? Again, referring back to page 24 of the Power List, fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power to. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. So here you go. When you say you're going to deliberately do this instead of casually, we are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory or suffering or humiliation of a week ago. So you're not using your past experiences. You're just taking action. But thinking you're using your past experiences. Maybe. I don't know. But, it's like, there's no way, if you knew what was going to happen, if you knew that your wife was going to, if you were going to lose your job, why didn't you go quit beforehand? Why didn't you just give your car away on the street? Quit your job and tell your girlfriend, fuck off. If you went out to do this drinking on purpose, well, why didn't you tell those people that in the first place? Because you didn't think that was going to happen. If you really look deep down in your heart, you didn't think those things were going to happen. Because if you did, you wouldn't have done it. So really, what it all comes down to is we cannot pull up the memories. We cannot use the evidence. We cannot use the truth. We hear this lie that says, hey, I'm the truth, pick me. And we pick it. And that lie that we pick and then take action on turns out to fuck shit up. So, our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink as that with an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. Let's call the jaywalker this story. He gets a thrill, a rush. He gets a boner out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of a friendly warning. Up to this point, you would label him foolish. Oh, that foolish chap. Oh, chap, for having queer ideas of fun. Apparently, I've read this too many times. Queer ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him, and he is slightly injured a few times in succession. You would expect him, if he were normal, right, to cut it out. Presently, he is hit again, and this time he's fractured his skull. Within a week, after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good, but in a few weeks, he breaks both legs. On through the years, his conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be careful or keep off the streets altogether. Finally, he can no longer work. His wife gets a divorce, and he's held up to ridicule. All for jaywalking. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. He shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. But the day comes, when he comes out, he races out in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? Now, you may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? I mean, come on now. We, who have been through the ringer, have to admit that if we substituted alcohol or drugs for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol and drugs had been involved, we had been strangely insane. It's strong language, but isn't it true? Some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. We admit we have some of these symptoms But we've not gone as to extremes as you guys did, nor are we likely to, for we understand ourselves so well, and after what you've told us, that such things cannot happen again. We have not lost everything in life through drinking, and we certainly not intend to. Thanks for the information. See ya. Bye-bye. Okay. That may be true for certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, they are able to stop or moderate. Because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were. But to the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, we will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. This is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize and smash home with a baseball bat upon our reader, as has been revealed to us in our bitter experience. Let us take another illustration. So, hopefully you're getting at what they're saying there, right? So, if you're not one of us, you can stop or moderate. But if you can't stop or moderate, you're one of us. And if you're one of us, then you are absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. Let me hit you with this baseball bat. All right, so last story here. Fred. Fred is a partner in a well-known accounting firm. His income is good, he has a fine home, is happily married, and the father of promising children of college age. He has so attractive a personality. He makes friends with everyone. If there ever was a successful businessman, it is Fred. To all appearances, he is stable, well-balanced individual. Yet, he's an alcoholic. First, we saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital, where he'd gone to recover from a bad case of the jitters. It was his first experience of that kind, and he was much ashamed of it. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, right? So far from ever taking step one, right? He just, no, dude, I just got the jitters. I got them real bad. I got bad. Just go for a little bye-bye. Just got bad. I'm not an alcoholic, though. He told himself he'd come to the hospital to rest his nerves. The doctor intimated strongly, so intimated means, listen here, motherfucker, strongly, that he might be worse than he realized. For a few days, he was depressed about his condition. He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether. So what did he do? He pulled out Mr. Willie, went to Willy Wonka Town, tried to use that willpower, right? I made up my mind. I'm going to do this thing. It never occurred. Thought never even came. That perhaps he could not do that. That maybe this idea of saying I'm going to stop for good, he never thought that maybe that's not possible. In spite of of his character and standing, Fred would not believe himself an alcoholic, much less accept the spiritual remedy for his problem. So, dude is not going to do step one, right? So why would step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? I mean, why? Yeah, if you're not step one, then you're not even bother with the rest of the steps. So, all right. So AA came and visited Fred. We told him what we knew about alcoholism. He was interested and conceded that he may have some of the symptoms, but he was way long from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself. Right? How many times do you? Oh no, I know what I got to do. I know what I got to do. I got to do. It's like, dude, if you knew what you had to do, you wouldn't be here. Okay, if you knew what you had to do, your ass wouldn't be sitting here. You'd have done it. Unless you're just a dumbass and don't do what you know you're supposed to do. Right? No, you can't do. You might know, but you can't do it. That's the experience that we bring. As we say, hey, this might be happening to you. He was positive that his humiliating experiences, plus the knowledge he had acquired, would keep him sober for the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it. So Sometimes you just gotta let people, oh, okay, cool, right on. Good luck with that. See ya. Well. We heard from Fred. Hadn't heard from Fred for a while. One day we were told that he was back at the hospital. This time quite shaky. He soon indicated that he was anxious to see us. The story he told us was most instructive. For here was a chap absolutely convinced he had to stop drinking, who had no excuses for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment and determination in all other concerns. Yet he was flat on his back nevertheless. Let him tell you about it. I was much impressed with what you fellows had to say about alcoholism, and I frankly did not believe that it would be possible for me to drink again. I rather appreciated your ideas about the subtle insanity which precedes the first drink, but I was confident that it could not happen to me after what I had learned. I reasoned that I was not so far advanced as most of you fellows, right? So he's different. I'm different. I'm not like you. I'm different. I had been unusually successful in licking my other personal problems, and that I would therefore be successful where you guys failed. I felt I had every right to be self-confident, for that would be only a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard, right? In this frame of mind, I went about my business, and for the first time as well, I had no trouble refusing drinks and began to wonder if I'd been making too hard a work of a simple matter. One day I went to Washington to present some accounting evidence to a government bureau. I had been out of town before during this particular dry spell, so there was nothing new about it. Physically, I felt fine. Neither did I have any pressing problems or worry. My business came off well. I was pleased, and I knew my partners would be pleased too. It was the end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon. I went to my hotel and leisurely dressed for dinner. A thought came. A thought crossed my mind. As I crossed the threshold to the dining room, the thought came to mind that it would be nice to have a couple of cocktails with dinner. That was all, nothing more. So, remember, untrue thought followed by untrue action. Fucked up result. So, that's the untrue thought, right? That's the crazy thought. Here's the crazy action. I ordered a cocktail and my meal. Then I ordered another cocktail. After dinner, I decided to take a walk. When I returned to the hotel, it struck me a highball. It'd be fine before going to bed. So I stepped in the bar and had one. I remember having several more that night and plenty the next morning. I have a shadowy, so that's the bad action. Here's the bad result. I have a shadowy recollection of being in an airplane bound for New York and of finding a friendly taxi driver at the landing field instead of my wife. So, dude's just, showing up who knows how many days late, and his wife, who probably was there, couldn't wait for him the first time. Some taxi now. The driver escorted me about for several days. So, dude went into hiding, right? So he's out there on a run, and he's hiding. He's not answering his cell phone. Oh, wait, they didn't have cell phones in 1939. Dude's just out there on a run. And this taxi driver's just driving around, just raking in the bucks. Wish I was his Uber driver. I know little of where I went, what I said, or what I did. Then came the hospital with unbearable mental and physical suffering. As I regained my ability to think, I went carefully over that evening in Washington. Not only had I been off guard, right? Not only. I had made no fight whatever against the first drink. This time I had not even thought the consequences at all. Peculiar mental twist. Strange mental blank spot. Powerlessness. Definition. Doesn't even come to mind. I had commenced to drink as carelessly as though the cocktails were ginger ale. I now remember what my alcoholic friend had told me about, and how they prophesied that if I had an alcoholic mind, the time and place would come when I would drink again. So that right there, that's called the alcoholic prophecy I've got written here. Alcoholic prophecy. Alcoholic prophecy is, if you have an alcoholic mind, the time and place will come when you will drink again. They said that they thought they had said that though I did raise a defense, it would one day give way before some trivial reason for having a drink. Well, just that did happen and more. For what I learned of alcoholism did not occur to me at all. I knew from the very moment that I had an alcoholic mind, I saw that willpower and self-knowledge would not help me in these strange mental blank spots. There's another one of those little peculiar mental twists, strange mental blank spots. Can't remember the other one. I never had been able to understand people who said they had a problem that they was hopelessly defeated them. I knew then it was a crushing blow. So here's a guy who, we can do so many things in so many different areas of our lives. We're successful people. We can do stuff, and yet this is one area where, when my sponsor first said, are you powerless? I'm like, yeah, you don't know me. I didn't like being powerless. My sponsor says, okay, did you ever say you're never going to do it again? I said, yeah. He said, how many times? 100. He goes, okay. So you said you never going to do it again. Did you mean it? Yeah. Okay, then did you do it again? Yeah. Okay, so you said you never going to do it again. You meant it. You weren't lying. You meant it, but you did it again. Yeah. I mean, powerless, maybe? Just over the drinking and the drugging? Maybe? Just this one little thing? You don't have to be powerless over everything in your life. I'm not saying, you're powerless to get your name in the paper or be on the cover of a magazine. No. Just powerless over whether or not you're going to drink today, whether or not you're going to stick a needle in your arm today. Are you powerless over that? I was like, yeah, I am. The power of choice is not mine. The decision gets made for me. Two of the members of Alcoholics Anonymous came to see me. They grinned, which I did not like so much, and they asked me if I thought myself an alcoholic and if I really was licked this time. I had to concede on both propositions. They piled on me heaps of evidence to the effect that an alcoholic mentality, such as I exhibited in Washington, was a hopeless condition. They cited cases of their own experience by the dozen. This process snuffed out the last flicker of conviction that I could do the job myself. So, shit. So, all right, I'm going to need help. That's what he's saying there. They then outlined a spiritual answer and program of action, which 100 of them had followed successfully. Though I had been a nominal churchman, their proposals were not intellectually hard to swallow. But the program of action, though entirely sensible, was pretty drastic. It meant that I'd have to throw away several lifelong conceptions out the window. And that was not easy. But the very moment that I made up my mind to go through with the process, I had this curious feeling that my alcoholic condition was relieved. And in fact, it proved to be. So yeah, I remember the first time I did my third step prayer on my knees with the sponsor holding my hand. It's like, I knew when I said that third step prayer that first time, I was like, something inside me was like, A, you're going to have to pray every day for the rest of your life. That's how this is going to go. And B, it's all going to work out. I did not pray every day ever since then. And I did not get sober until I started praying every day since then. So there's a long period of time that I didn't pray every day. I didn't meditate. And didn't, continually foster and nurture my spiritual condition. When I started, that's when I stayed sober. So, quite as important was the discovery that spiritual principles would solve, ring around words, solve all my problems. Wait, hold on. I thought I was just here to solve the drink problem or the drug problem. Well, you might be, but this whole thing, that the answer here is called a spiritual awakening. Oh, a byproduct. One of the byproducts is you're going to get sober. But this living by spiritual principles, it's going to solve all your problems. I have since been brought into a way of living infinitely more satisfying and I hope more useful than life I had lived before. My old manner of life was by no means a bad one, but I would not exchange it for the best moments, for the worst I have now. I would not go back to it even if I could. Fred's story speaks for itself. We hope it strikes home to the thousands like him. He had felt but only the first nip of the ringer. Most alcoholics have to be pretty badly mangled before they commence to solve their problems, right? So, how bad it has to get, I wish I could tell you. How bad it has to get for somebody else, I wish I could tell you. I couldn't even tell for myself. I could not make the decision for myself. It was always grace. I remember my sponsor saying to me, because it doesn't appear as though your way is working. He says, so, if God is really the answer to this here, I would suggest you get really, really close to God. And it wasn't until I decided to get close to God that this thing worked. So, many doctors and psychiatrists agree with our conclusions. One of these men, a staff member, a world-renowned hospital, made a statement to some of us. What you say about the general hopelessness of the average alcoholic's plight is, in my opinion, correct. As two young men whose stories I have heard, there's no doubt in my mind that you two were 100% hopeless, apart from divine help. Had you offered yourself as patients in the hospital, I would not have taken you if I had been able to avoid it. People like you are too heartbreaking. Though not a religious person, I have profound respect for the spiritual approach in such cases as yours. For most cases, there's virtually no other solution. Once more, the alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink. So I have defense defined as the act of defending against attack, danger, or injury. And then, except in a few rare cases, neither he nor other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power, aka God. I have must defined as something that is absolutely required or indispensable. So, is this a program of suggestion? Well, I don't know. Is must a suggestion? I don't think must is a suggestion. I think must is a must.